Three-stage sketching is the idea that three iterations of a character design will result in the strongest balance of illustrative appeal and design clarity. In one of my other classes called Illustration by Design, I talk about how the principles of graphic arts can elevate design clarity in an illustration. Three-stage sketching is a similar approach to art. Really, it's about being in the right mindset at crucial stages of your creative process. The first iteration of your sketch should reveal the character's physical type. The artist should be focusing on proportion and the general form of their design choices. Are the shapes of your characters soft and heavy? Are they light and sharp? For me, I want my elemental guardian to be a high-ranking figure, someone with authority. While keeping human proportions in mind, I'm sketching shapes that feel tall and stable. This character isn't a warrior. She doesn't have any apparent physical strengths or athletic costuming. She's designed to be a figure of respect. Standing and speaking are her roles in her culture. Her costume should feel graceful and balanced, like the O'Keeffe flower forms that inspire it. When I've successfully established the proportions, pose, and general form of this character, I lower the opacity of the first sketch layer using the opacity slider in the Layer tab. And in this case, I'm going to change the color of my sketch pencil to red to help it show up better in the video. Keep it blue if you want, but sometimes it's helpful to have a bit of contrast as you layer up your sketching. Iteration 2 is about refining the character's physical traits and bringing out the design elements. I usually start with the face and headwear because they're the most closely linked to the character's personality. You can see the crown on this character is inspired by the central forms of the O'Keeffe painting. My character's face is going to be long and narrow, and I can emphasize this idea by giving her a longer nose and raised eyebrows and tall ears. I want the costuming to be layered, so I'm separating her skirt from her top and placing a royal stone at her center. This resembles the little yellow form in the painting, probably the stigma, the pollen-attracting part of the flower. Does this point of emphasis represent her femininity? I guess that's a topic for another class, so we'll move on. Her lower half, which means anything that's below the waist, including the hands in this case, is going to splay out to enhance this sense of stability. It's kind of like she's growing up out of the ground. And you'll notice here that I've got a vertical line that runs through the center of the figure. This helps me establish that 3/4 turn of the character's pose. Now I'm starting to give more form and flourish to the character's gown. Let's try representing the petals from the painting in the back part of the gown. This gives the character a bit more of a fantastic presence. Now I'm going to switch off that first blue sketch and take a moment to assess this second sketch. Without the distraction of that first iteration, I can refine some of the details of my character. I'm going to return to the face and give her some more personality. I want to push the authorial side of her personality and give her a slightly angular and almost gaunt facial structure. I want the character to feel a little beyond human. I'm doing what I refer to as pushing the forms of the sketch. This means stretching them out and distinguishing them. I'm also going to try turning the petals behind the head into something of a royal collar, something that frames her face and feels totally impractical. Next, I'm bringing a little more form to the gown's petals. And all right, iteration 2 is finished. Only when I feel that I've really lost my way in my design do I return to that first iteration. In this case, I think my design is true to my original intent, so I'm going to move on to the third iteration without looking back. Again, I lower the opacity of the layer, and I'm going to return to that blue pencil with a slightly larger brush size so I can get more weight variation in my line work. And this begins my final sketch. Now this time, my goal is to streamline this design for maximum readability. The third iteration is not about adding more details. If anything, it's about taking them away. It's about simplification and emphasis of the character's personality and physical presence. Personality for my character comes from the forms of the face. The heightened features imply a sense of otherworldly knowledge. The hair behind her crown gives a little hint at a true self, and maybe almost implies her age. Let's call that her humanity, for lack of a better alien term. In the third iteration, once I move away from the face, I try to sketch in broad, confident shapes. I'm thinking about the overall silhouette my forms create, and less about any specific details of a singular shape. You'll notice I'm adding a few loose lines on the gown, torso, and collar to bring some roundness and depth to the sketch. Now, depending on the inking style, those lines may or may not get used. Right now, they're just notes to consider in my next phase of inking. There we go, that's my finished sketch. So 3-stage sketching, it's more of a philosophy than a practice. You may be more of a 2-stage sketcher, or a 4-stage sketcher, or a 30-stage sketcher. It doesn't really matter how many sketches you actually make, as long as within that process, you're creating time to fully clarify the design elements of your character and use them to enforce the drawing's personality.